Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts. Today we have a packed briefing looking at some significant developments affecting the industry right now.
Right, we are covering a mix of legal filings, environmental updates, and corporate deployments.
Exactly. The three main stories we are following today are an active safety lawsuit involving Disney Cruise Line, an environmental alert that is threatening Alaska itineraries, and Royal Caribbean's newly detailed 2027 fleet deployment in Europe.
And, for anyone listening who tracks maritime operations or is just planning a trip, these reports really show the practical realities of managing a modern cruise fleet. It's a balance of passenger volume, daily safety protocols, and reacting to environmental factors.
Let's get right into the first story regarding cabin safety. On May 18th, 2026, a lawsuit was filed in Brevard County, Florida.
Right.
This was filed by Ehrenfeld Trial lawyers, and they are representing the family of a minor passenger who is identified in the documents as CS.
Yes, and this involves an incident on the Disney Wonder during an Alaska cruise back on July 30, 2024.
The filing states that at approximately 1 a.m., the child allegedly rolled through a gap beside the guardrail of an upper pull-down berth.
And that was in cabin 2508, which is a deluxe ocean view stateroom. It's about 214 square feet.
Right, and falling from that upper bed resulted in the child fracturing both wrists. And we want to report this soberly. The medical details indicate this included a growth plate injury,
Which is a very serious medical matter for a minor. A growth plate injury can complicate how a bone develops as a child grows.
It definitely can. And because of that medical reality, the family is seeking over $50,000.
Right, they're citing costs for immediate medical care, as well as, future losses and pain and suffering.
Disney has not publicly responded to the specific allegations in this suit yet. They do state on their official website that guest well-being is their absolute top priority.
Yeah, that is their standard corporate stance. But looking at the legal filing itself, the family's case hinges on a few specific arguments regarding that guardrail gap.
Right, three main counts of negligence, actually. They allege a failure to provide reasonably safe accommodations, a failure to warn passengers about the specific condition of the bed, and vicarious liability.
And that last point, the vicarious liability, that's a standard element in maritime law.
Can you explain how that applies here?
Sure, well, basically means the cruise line is ultimately responsible for the actions of its contractors. So if an independent company designed or inspected that specific pull-down bed and its guardrail, Disney is still legally accountable for that physical hardware in the cabin.
Because they operate the ship and profit from the stateroom.
Exactly. The core of the family's claim is that the guardrail didn't run the full length of the mattress, and that this presented a risk that wasn't obvious to a sleeping child.
We will continue to monitor the docket in Brevard County to see how Disney formally responds to those three counts.
Yes, we will.
Moving on to our second story, we are shifting from a localized cabin issue to a major environmental alert affecting broader itineraries. The National Weather Service is currently monitoring a situation in Juneau, Alaska.
Right. This involves a geographical area called Suicide Basin. It's a side basin located near the Mendenhall Glacier.
And the NWS is reporting that water is rising rapidly there. They expect the basin to reach capacity between August 8 and August 12, 2026.
And when that happens, it triggers what is known as a glacial outburst flood.
Right.
Basically, rainwater and snowmelt drain beneath the glacier and empty directly into Mendenhall Lake and the Mendenhall River.
The reports note this is not an isolated event either. This specific basin has flooded almost yearly since 2011.
It has. Now, it's important to clarify that the cruise ship docks in Juneau are roughly 10 miles away from the glacier, so the physical ships themselves are completely safe.
That's a good point to highlight. Ships from Carnival, Princess, Holland America, NCL, Disney, and Royal Caribbean are all operating in that area right now without direct physical risk to the vessels.
Right, but the disruption is to the shore excursions. Juneau sees about 1.7 million annual passengers, and a huge portion of them travel specifically to the Mendenhall Valley for glacier viewing and kayaking.
And when this flood occurs, those activities are effectively shut down due to the rising water and infrastructure damage.
Exactly. And that brings up the issue of how this impacts the passenger directly.
How so?
Well, if a passenger booked their excursion through the cruise line handles the cancellation and the refund when the NWS issues those warnings.
Right, it's centralized.
But if they booked an independent tour with a local vendor, the passenger bears the risk of navigating those sudden cancellations themselves.
Which can be complicated if local roads are dealing with floodwaters. And this environmental volatility also affects the local community significantly.
It really does. In fact, after a similar glacial flood in August 2024, Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings donated $50,000 for local recovery efforts.
Which shows how interconnected the cruise operators are with the local Juneau infrastructure. They rely on it functioning to deliver the itinerary.
Exactly. They need those roads and facilities operational to process those 1.7 million passengers.
So, dealing with unpredictable natural events is just a built-in operational cost in Alaska.
It is.
Well, looking at how cruise lines plan for the future, our final story today covers Royal Caribbean's strategy for Southern Europe. They just announced their 2027 fleet deployment.
And it is a very extensive deployment. They are planning 50 itineraries across 7 different ships.
It's a massive logistical footprint. The details show Freedom of the Seas is moving to Northern Europe and the UK.
Right.
Meanwhile, we are seeing Legend of the Seas, which the sources note as part of the Icon class returning to the Western Mediterranean. It will be sailing alongside Mariner of the Seas and Rhapsody of the Seas.
Yes, and those vessels will be calling on ports like Rome, Florence, and Capri. But the strategic focal point really seems to be their plans for the Eastern Mediterranean.
Right. They are deploying Odyssey, Explorer, Rhapsody, and Brilliance of the Seas in that region. And a major component of this is a new branded destination called the Royal Beach Club Santorini.
Yes. This is being offered as part of an excursion they're calling the Ultimate Santorini Day.
So how exactly does this beach club operate within the itinerary?
Well, it is a highly curated experience organized entirely by the cruise line. Guests get access to a black sand beach, Greek food, a DJ, all packaged together.
So it's essentially a closed-loop excursion. The passengers aren't just wandering into a local town. They are staying within an environment managed by Royal Caribbean.
Exactly. And from a business perspective, that allows the cruise line to maintain strict quality control over the food, the service, and the overall guest experience, rather than relying completely on independent local infrastructure.
It is a very different approach to traditional port calls.
It is. And, they haven't entirely moved away from traditional ports.
Right. Looking at the schedule, Odyssey and Rhapsody of the Seas are still slated to visit Alexandria, Egypt, and Casablanca, Morocco.
Exactly. So passengers will actually have a distinct choice on these 2027 sailings.
A choice between different styles of tourism, essentially.
Right. I mean, you can choose the traditional bustling port call in a city like Alexandria, or you can opt for the heavily managed, cruise line-operated experience at the Royal Beach Club.
It really shows a dual approach to how they are structuring these European deployments.
It does. They're offering the standard cultural immersion while also building out their own managed properties to ensure a consistent product.
So to summarize today's briefing, we've looked at 3 distinct facets of the industry. First, the specific safety lawsuit regarding the pull-down bed on the Disney Wonder, highlighting the complexities of cabin engineering and maritime liability.
Right.
Then, the ongoing environmental challenges in Alaska with the expected flooding of Suicide Basin near the Mendenhall Glacier.
Which really underscores the unpredictable nature of operating in these dynamic environments.
Exactly. And finally, we covered Royal Caribbean's massive 2027 European deployment, contrasting their traditional port calls with their new, controlled Royal Beach Club Santorini excursion.
And well, I think that leaves us with an interesting concept to mull over regarding the future of the industry.
What's that?
As these cruise ships increase in size and natural environments remain somewhat unpredictable, you have to wonder if the traditional independent port call will eventually become rare. Will the future of cruising rely mostly on closed-loop, corporate-managed destinations to minimize operational risk?
That is definitely something to think about as we see these deployments scheduled further and further out. Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.